Definitely.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. As we had yesterday discussed about a difficult topic of malignancies in children, today we are going to focus on a simple topic which is useful for you not only from the theoretical point of view but also practical point of view. So the topic is thalassemia. Before I move forward, I would like to tell you that there are some disorders in our country uh, which are actually preventable, uh, which are treatable, and we should actually, everyone of us should be responsible for creating awareness in our society regarding those disorders. And one of those disorders is thalassemia. Okay. So, as you all know, thalassemia is a genetic disorder. It is inherited as autosomal recessive disorder. So, what we mean by that is that you should have two people, to carry the gene. Both of them will be recessive, and there will be a 25% chance that they will have a child who will be affected by the disease. Okay. Can anyone tell me what is the incidence of thalassemia in our country? So see, basically, there are three types of thalassemia. Okay, there is something called as thalassemia minor. There is something called as intermedia or non-transfusion dependent thalassemia, and there is something called as thalassemia major. So, thalassemia minor is just a carrier state. It is not a disease. Intermediate or non-transfusion dependent thalassemia is something intermediate, and there is something called as transfusion dependent thalassemia, which is a major disorder. What we are going to discuss today. So, thalassemia minor is something which is a sort of disorder. If we pick in our country, then we may avoid the other two. Okay, I will come to that again. So these are some guidelines which are there to manage patients of thalassemia. We'll take one case to make it simple for you. So a 5-month-old boy, suppose he presented to your clinic when you joined your clinical practice, and mother has told that they have noticed increasing pallor in this patient. There is no history of fever or any bleeding manifestation in this patient. And child is exclusively breastfed. On examination, you could notice there is a pallor. There is a liver of 4 centimeter. There is spleen of 3 centimeter. There is no lymphadenopathy. So basically, you have got a patient who is around 6 months, 4 to 6 months of age, having pallor and hepatosplenomegaly. Okay, and you can see the CBC report of this patient. So when you see the blood report, you can see there is a severe anemia. HB is only 5.5. While WBC count and platelet, WBC is increased, platelet count is normal. And as you can see, mean corpuscular volume, MCV, is less than 70. It is only 68. Okay. So this is a patient of anemia who has got hepatosplenomegaly along with that. So when you investigate this patient, the first investigation you do is peripheral smear. In peripheral smear, as you can see, there are some cells which have been marked by the arrow. Few of them are called as target cells. You can see a cell and there is a dot in between. There is something called as teardrop cell. Okay. And there are anisopoikilosis, means size and shape of the cells is different. Okay. So this is a typical peripheral smear which you will see in case of thalassemia major. Microcytic hypochromic anemia with teardrop cells, target cells, and polychromasia and nucleated RBCs. Okay. So when you get such patient and such peripheral smear, you order something called as HPLC. So this is the HPLC report, HB electrophoresis. HB electrophoresis was the old terminology. Nowadays we call it as HPLC. It is high performance liquid chromatography. In this technique, different hemoglobins have got different charge. According to that, they will move along the electrode. Okay, and they will plot a graph as you can see here. Okay, so the graph is plotted, and based on that plot, we can get the concentration of the hemoglobin in the body of the patient. Normally, you and those who are normal will have hemoglobin A as their major hemoglobin, and the level of HbA2 and HbF is less. Okay, so I will repeat it. The HbA, which is alpha 2 beta 2, is the major hemoglobin in all of us, while the HbF and HbA2 are very minimal in our body. HbF, you all know, it is alpha 2 gamma 2, while HbA2 is alpha 2 delta. Okay. So this is the HPLC report or electrophoresis report of that baby. And as you can see in the bracket, there is a normal range written of HbA, A2 and F. HbA normally, as I mentioned, it is 94 to 98% in our body. A2 is less than 3.5. A is less than 2%. But in this particular patient, as you can see, HbF is 94.3. So it is very high. So the normal hemoglobin, which is HbA, it is reduced in this patient, and hemoglobin F, which is actually a fetal hemoglobin, it has been increased. And when we did the HPLC of the mother and father, both have HbA2 level increased. That indicates thalassemia trait. Okay, so I will go back. This is the HPLC report of patient of thalassemia major. In thalassemia major, HbF is increased in a very high range, while in case of thalassemia minor, I mean by minor carrier, the HbA2 level is increased. Okay, so HbA2 when it is high, it is called as thalassemia minor or thalassemia trait or thalassemia carrier. All are synonymous. Okay, so both mother and father are carrier of this patient, and the patient is having thalassemia major. Okay. Now, how do you counsel the family? You have seen the patient, there is hepatosplenomegaly, you have ordered HPLC, and now you know that the child is having thalassemia major. So it is a huge emotional setback for the family to have something like this at the age of 5 months, 6 months, when they are just started to enjoy the childhood of the baby. So thalassemia major, what is thalassemia? How it is inherited? Why there is need for regular transfusion? And what is the curative option? How you will do family screening and psychological support. So, being undergraduate student, all these questions you should also know, and I feel that I will answer them for all of you so that you will know what is thalassemia and everything. So, as we have already seen, thalassemia is a genetically inherited blood disorder where hemoglobin, normal hemoglobin is reduced. As we saw in the HPLC report, the HbA, which is normal hemoglobin, which has got good oxygen carrying capacity, is reduced, while the HbF is increased. What happens when the HbF is increased? HbF has got excessive binding for the oxygen. So oxygen is not delivered to the tissues. So practically, even though Hb level looks normal, because the HbF is more, the oxygen delivery to the tissues is reduced. And that is what we call as anemia. Okay. So these patients will essentially have severe anemia in their body. As we have already seen Hb in the range of 5.5. At the age of 6 months, when HbF also starts dropping normally, and HbA should increase as it happens in your and my body. It doesn't happen in case of thalassemia patients. So see, basically thalassemia we have seen, it is inherited as autosomal recessive. So I was coming to this third point, why there is a need for regular blood transfusion. So the normal hemoglobin, which is HbA, which should be high, more than 95%, is not there in the body of thalassemia patients, while the HbF is very high, which is practically of no use after the age of 6 months. So practically these patients have got low hemoglobin, severely low hemoglobin, and they are dependent on outside blood transfusion for their whole life. Okay. So these patients will require blood transfusion repeatedly for their whole life. The approximate time duration is 21 days to 45 days, something like that. Whenever the hemoglobin drops, you have to give more transfusion. Whatever the transfused blood RBC's lifespan is there, it will remain in their body. Again, the HB will drop. Again, you have to transfuse. Okay. So it is a severe disease. This is a big burden to the family. What is the curative option? Curative option is bone marrow transplantation. We will come to that later on in the discussion. You have to do the family screening. Now, this might be their second or third child, and first and second child may not have any disorder, because we have already discussed that it is an autosomal recessive disorder. When you get autosomal recessive disorder, only 25% will have a homozygous disease. Okay, and only those will be affected. 25% will be unaffected, and 50% will be carrier. Okay, so 25% are unaffected, 50% are carrier, and 25% are homozygously affected individuals. So you have to screen the family to know if the remaining children are affected or non-affected, or they are carriers. Okay. You have to give the psychological support to the family, because as I mentioned, it is a big disorder to have, and it is a lifelong disease. It is a morbid condition. So you have to support the family that, curative options are there, bone marrow transplantation is there. If you take regular blood transfusion, good quality, they may have a good quality of life, just like normal other human beings. So you have to be positive towards these patients. And there are thalassemia societies which are working in every city. Aurangabad also has one at Hedgewar. So these societies register the patients. They give them blood transfusion. They give them help for the medicines. They counsel them. They motivate the families. They get help and guidance from hematologist time to time. So it is, and they see other patients who are having the similar disorders. So they get the support, essential support which is required for them. So it is advisable to register them in thalassemia societies. So we'll come to one each component of the therapy, blood transfusion therapy. So when to start blood transfusion, how much blood you should do, and how frequently you have to give it, and what is your goal of hemoglobin to maintain in the body. So you have to, as I have mentioned, whenever the patient will present, patient generally present at the age of 6 months, they can present up to 18 months of age. So whenever they present with severe anemia, you investigate them, you send them HPLC, you do parents HPLC. When you are diagnosed thalassemia major and hemoglobin is less than 9.5, you have to transfuse them. How much? It is 15 ml per kg. You can go up to 20 ml per kg. Okay. So 15 to 20 ml per kg is the amount of blood you have to transfuse. How frequently? As I mentioned, the blood transfusion frequency may vary from 21 days to 35 days. It is not the day which matters, but the third line. What is your goal of hemoglobin? It matters. Okay. So your pre-transfusion hemoglobin goal is more than 9.5. Please listen to me carefully. Pre-transfusion hemoglobin has to be maintained more than 9.5. Our normal hemoglobin is in the range of 10, more than 12, 13 or something like that. But maintaining that much hemoglobin is difficult. The frequency is also frequency has. So we were here discussing regarding blood transfusion, right? When to start, how much to give, how frequently to give, and pre-transfusion hemoglobin. This we have seen whenever the patient will present with severe anemia, and we'll start with the transfusion. 15 to 20 ml to be given to be every 21 days or 30 days. Pre-transfusion hemoglobin, our goal is more than 9.5 grams. Okay. So we have seen this already. We'll go through the next. There is something called as red cell typing. It is not very important for you. You just have to remember that you have to give a good matched blood to the patient. And it doesn't mean only the blood group. There are major and minor antigen. As you all know, AB and RH are the two blood group system that has to be matched. Beyond that, Duffy, Kale, and all other minor antigens are there. If you give minor antigen matched also, then the chances of reaction to these patients are less, because they are transfused repeatedly. the chances of reaction as such are there more compared to other patients. So you have to give typed blood to avoid the transfusion reactions. There is something called as leukodepleted blood, by which you remove the WBCs from the blood, which will again help in reducing the transfusion reactions. Okay. You have to again give them some supplements such as folic acid supplement. Then you have to give calcium supplements. Okay. There is something called as iron overload phenomenon in these patients. Whenever you repeated blood transfusion to these patients, the level of iron in their body goes on increasing. Apart from blood transfusion, as such, these patients have got tendency to increase. They have increased absorption of iron from the GI. Okay. So there are two mechanisms by which iron overload is there in the thalassemia. First one is regular blood transfusion, which you are going to give for the lifelong, and there is increased transfusion, increased absorption from the GI tract or the gut. Okay, will not go into too much detail, but the excess iron which is there, it is deposited in the liver and heart of the patient. So in long run, when you give repeated transfusion lifelong, the liver and heart of the patient are affected and they do not function normally. So it is very important for you to remove that excess iron from their body, and that is called as chelation. Okay, so you cannot avoid transfusion. Transfusion is something by which they are living, so you cannot avoid transfusion. And by giving transfusion, you are going to have iron overload. So what you do is you continue with the transfusion and you give some medicines to reduce the iron. Okay, so that is chelation, and there are different agents when to. Now the question is, when will you start on the chelation therapy? So approximately roughly when the 10 times patient has been transfused. Okay, so let's say if you start at the age of 6 months and 10 times you have transfused the patient, you will check serum ferritin of that patient. Serum ferritin when more than 1000, you will start them on chelation. Okay, why 1000? Because that is a cutoff point. Normally our ferritin levels are less than 200. When they start increasing, the chances of damage to the liver and heart increase. And when they cross 1000, you start them on chelation therapy. Okay, there are different agents available. You don't have to go in detail. You just remember the name. There is something called as desferrioxamine, deferasirox, and defriprone. Okay, there are 2-3 drugs which are used for chelation. Okay, if they are not chelated properly, if the proper dose is not given, ferritin is not reduced, then they may have effects on liver, heart, and endocrine system such as thyroid, and everything is also affected. Okay. So regular monitoring and follow-up of this patient is very important. So what do you do in regular monitoring? You just continue them on transfusion, you continue them on chelation, you monitor their height, weight, you monitor their thyroid functions once in a year. You look for their bone density because they are prone for fractures. Hypocalcemia is there, vitamin D level is reduced in them, thyroid abnormalities are there. When they go to the puberty, there are pubertal delay and growth hormone deficiency is common in this patient. So monitoring all this is very important. Okay. There is something called as splenectomy in this patient. In older days, when the patients were not transfused properly, because of the severe anemia, splenomegaly used to be there, huge splenomegaly. Okay. So that is because of the extramedullary hematopoiesis. Whenever there is anemia in the body tries to compensate for that, and in that bargain, liver and spleen used to increase in size. And when the spleen is increased excessively, it is not beneficial for the body, but it harms the body. So sometimes you have to do the splenectomy. And when you do splenectomy, you have to do some precautions such as you immunize these patients with pneumococcal, meningococcal vaccines to avoid infections related to those bacteria. Okay. Now I'm towards the end of my lecture. There is something called as thalassemia intermedia. Okay. So thalassemia major we have already seen. you have to give them regular transfusion, you have to give them chelation, you have to monitor them properly, and it is a little bit of tedious job. There is some, and we have already seen thalassemia minor also. Thalassemia minor is just a carrier state. Most of these patients of thalassemia minor or thalassemia trait are asymptomatic. You may not have heard, but Amitabh Bachchan himself is having thalassemia minor. Amisha Patel has thalassemia minor. So these are the individuals which are normal, just like you and me. They do not have much effect in their quality of life. They will have minor anemia in the range of 9 to 11 gram, but it may not affect their day-to-day life. So these are asymptomatic individuals. Thalassemia minor is common in India. 3 to 4% of population has got thalassemia minor. Thalassemia major we have seen, and there is something intermediate between the two. That is called a thalassemia intermediate. Okay, these are the patients who are not asymptomatic like thalassemia minor, and they are not severe like thalassemia major. They are intermediate. Okay, so these are the patients which generally present after the age of 18 months. We have seen thalassemia major will generally present at age of 6 months or 1 year. This patient generally present after the age of 18 months, and their hemoglobin is in the range of 8 to 10 gram. So they generally they do not require blood transfusion repeatedly. Okay, these patients can be managed with hydroxyurea. It is a medicine which is given to manage thalassemia intermediate patients. Most of these patients, when they receive hydroxyurea therapy, they do not require blood transfusion, but few of them may ultimately end up requiring blood transfusion, just like thalassemia major, in the due course of the time. To start with, they may not require, but in the due course of the time, they may require blood transfusion therapy also. Then we'll come to bone marrow transplantation also at the end. So the only therapy which we have not covered is bone marrow transplantation. Bone marrow transplantation is a curative therapy for thalassemia major as well as thalassemia intermediate. Yesterday, we have just pitched in onto the concept of bone marrow transplantation, that you take a healthy donor from which you give the normal stem cells to this patient, and normal stem cells will sort of grow in this patient, and by that the patients may become transfusion independent. They may not require lifelong transfusion therapy. So there is one component of the therapy, one aspect is blood transfusion and chelation. Another aspect is bone marrow transplantation. Bone marrow transplantation is curative. It will offer cure to these patients. So whenever you have a HLA matched sibling, sibling available in the family, you should consider bone marrow transplantation. Initially, the cost of therapy was in the range of 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs. Now the cost of therapy has gradually been decreasing, and in government setups, even less than 1 lakh rupees, we can undergo bone marrow transplantation. 70 to 80% of the patients are cured totally, and they are transfusion independent after bone marrow transplantation is done. So it is a ray of hope for that family. But the risk is that you may lose the child during the bone marrow transplantation, because it is a risky procedure. There is a risk to the life, and few patients, even after bone marrow transplantation, may remain transfusion dependent. They may require blood transfusion in the future. So these 2 points you have to remember when you counsel the family, that although most of the patients are cured, there is a risk of death to your child, and there is a slight minor risk that patient may require transfusion in the future also. Okay, so this is about thalassemia. You may get a long question answer, in your theory about managing thalassemia, and definitely you may get a minor, short case in your final practical exam in pediatrics, because it is a very common disorder. Many of the patients come to your hospital for blood transfusion. Routinely, they are in the wards. So sometimes these patients are kept as your practical exam is for you. So you have to remember all these points. Any questions anyone will like to ask me or discuss me? If not, we'll short in the end. We'll cover sickle cell anemia also.